All right, we've had a little bit of time since the last training, really to get into Twitter, to dive into that Twittersphere, to find out what's going on. Today, we're going to go the caffeinated version. It's officially, non-officially sponsored by Mountain Dew today, because it is part Dew. But more importantly, this is why. Early this morning, Mountain Dew did a shout out for me, so I felt like it was appropriate to go ahead and sponsor them and to use their drink, their beverages for today, they appreciate me being an awesome fan. I actually appreciate Mountain Dew for just keeping me awake. My wife as well, we pretty much just live on the stuff, so it's good stuff. So training today is unofficially sponsored by Mountain Dew, but it is officially sponsored by caffeine. Sorry, Randy. Caffeine is good for most of us. We like it.
Sorry, Randy. I actually like the Code Red.
That's right. So today, we're going to go over a few things. We're going to get into the nuts and bolts and really get in some hands-on type of training today. You have a handout as well. We're also doing this on Periscope. Anybody familiar with Periscope? So this is actually being filmed live on Periscope. So all of my followers on Periscope, if you are needing these handouts, hey, just tweet me. I'll get them over to you. So today's agenda, what we're going to look at today is we're going to first look at the purpose, what your purpose is behind Twitter. We're going to look at how to build lists and the strategies behind building lists, the importance of that. And really, this part right here of building lists, if you take away only one thing today from this training, take away this, the building lists. This will help you in whatever it is you decide to do with Twitter. Very important aspect of Twitter and how to make it more functional for you. We're going to look at finding and following influencers today. We're going to look at the follow, unfollow tweets. So when we get into when we follow people, when we unfollow people, why we do that, as well as some of the tools that we use to help follow and unfollow people. We're going to look at what to tweet today. We're also going to look at when to tweet. And then we'll look at some of the tools, tips, and tricks of getting into Twitter. All right. We talked about this last time. Last time it was posed as a question. This time it's posed as a statement. Yes, Twitter is right for your business. It's not a question of if anymore. Social media has changed the way that we do business. Social media is continually changing the way that we do business. And being just on one social network is not good enough. A lot of people are used to the Facebook mentality, always being on Facebook. Facebook is still one of the largest social media platforms out there, but that's changing. And we need to look at other platforms. I do a lot on Twitter, but that's not all I'm on. But today we're going to focus on Twitter. So we said Twitter has over 302 million monthly active members, 500 million tweets are sent each day, 80% accessing Twitter via mobile. 73% of users feel better about a small to medium business after following their account on Twitter. So very important that you have a presence, because people who do business with you feel more safe and they're more likely to do business with you. In fact, 9 out of 10 users have had conversation with or about a small, medium business on Twitter, and 60% of them have actually done business because of the conversation and because of the interaction and the engagement that takes place on Twitter. So Twitter is an important tool. You cannot disregard it anymore. Yes, some of you may be feeling confused and overwhelmed with it. That's why I'm here. I will help you with that. Whether it be in this setting or you have my contact information, I can help you outside of this setting as well. So a couple stats, just a couple things to look at through my Twitter account. So last month in July, I sent 325 tweets. I had about 194,000 impressions, so it showed up on 194,000 people's wall there. 16,000 people actually went and visited, had a profile visit. 307 people mentioned me by name last month. I had 19, almost 2,000 new followers last month. And my clout score jumped up to 67, which puts me right now about top 10% of social media users right now. Okay.
Do you sponsor any of your tweets, actually pay money to get more followers, or is this just based on truly just being more active?
Nope, I have not paid for any sponsorships of tweets yet. Will that happen at some time? It probably will. But right now, this is all based off the tools that I use. Some paid tools, and we'll talk about those, but they can also be free tools as well. So that's a really good question of if this was paid to get these types of statistics, but right now it's not, which is kind of nice. So we look at the Twitter purpose. So the first thing we look at, and on your worksheet, we have a Twitter purpose. What is your purpose to be on Twitter? And there's really what I like to call the 3 cubed users. We looked at there's a personal, there's a business reason, and then there's both. We talked about this last time as well. We looked at the types of tweeters that are out there. We said that there are connectors. We also said that there are confused people out there. Some of you may be some of those confused tweeters at times. And then hopefully none of you are this one, which was the creepy tweeters. Okay. It happens all the time. So that's what we look at when we start looking at what the purpose is. And so you need to start figuring out, what is your purpose? And we're going to help narrow down what that purpose may be, but you also have that on your worksheet. Now, something else, as we're going through this presentation, it would be to your advantage to take some notes. I left some area there for you to take notes. If there's a really cool thing that I say, because occasionally this happens while I'm up here, I'll be talking and something will come out of my mouth and I'll think to myself, hey, that was awesome. I have no idea where that came from, but that was awesome. And I need you to write that down and tweet it back to me so that I can remember that I said something awesome. Okay? So that's why you need to be taking notes. And if something comes out, you're like, whoa, sweet. Write that down and tweet it and tag me in it. And it makes everybody better. All right. So when you figure out your purpose, and you got to figure out, am I going to do this because it's for business reasons? Am I trying to connect with an audience? Or am I trying to do this for personal reasons? It's just fun, connect with kids, spy on my kids. You know, we, parents, we do that. If you don't know how to do that, we can talk about that later as well. But it's a good way to spy on your kids of what's happening out there. But you got to first figure out, what is it you want to accomplish? Maybe it's a little bit of both. And that's a lot of what I use Twitter for, is there's some personal reasons, but there's also a lot of business reasons as well. And when I start to narrow down what I want to do with that, do I want it as an educational tool? Do I want it as a connecting tool? Do I just want to make myself laugh, be freaked out with some of the crazy stuff that's out there, whatever it might be. But once you start finding that purpose of why you want to be there, the next step is start to build lists. This by far has changed the way that I use Twitter. Now we looked at early on, some of you may have saw that, I'm roughly about 38,000, almost 39,000 followers on my Twitter account. I can't keep up with that many people. I don't even think I could count to 38,000 without screwing up at some point in time. So why is that number important, and what do I use that number for? Well, of that 38,000 people, there are a handful of groups that I like to pay attention to. And so I like to segment them. So I follow different people for different reasons. I follow people because they make me smarter. I follow people because they're social media influencers, what they're doing out there. So I'll put them in a list, and we're going to talk about how to build these lists right now. I'll follow my sports people. I want to know what's going on during golf, because I can't, it's Thursday afternoon, golf just started, I can't just plop down in front of the TV. I want to know how that first opening round is going to be. So I can pull up my Twitter account and I can start getting live updates of what's happening with my sports, with my golf, whatever it might be. Or maybe that I have a group called St. George Chamber. Hey, I want to know what all the chamber members are doing today. So everybody that's followed me, and as I start to build that, I'm going to start plugging you in maybe in that list as well. Yes?
When someone puts you on their list, is that what you're getting an indication of when it says so-and-so added you to the list? Is it their homemade list, or is it I guess I should say a large social list? Are lists just your account and your lists, or are there lists that you join that are, I guess, group related or larger entities of lists?
So great question. So we're looking at what type of lists are there out there. When somebody adds you to a list, and you'll be notified that you got added to a list, you got to be careful. I guess you got to first figure out who's adding you to the list. If you've been down in Vegas for a week and all of a sudden this mafia type list, just added you to a list, you're screwed. Okay? You don't want to be to that list. But all the lists that you're added to are lists that somebody has built on their own. And we're going to get into those types of lists because those are public lists and there are private lists.
So can you take someone's list and bring it in? And is that a way to pull a stronger group of lists?
You can follow a list.
But you can't bring it into your list.
You can in a way because you can go through who's on that list and you can go through and follow those that are in that list. So that's a great tool to add more followers that are like-minded. If you get added to a list, there's probably a reason to say, oh, this person is added maybe for leadership. I'm on a leadership list. Well, they're probably adding other people that they feel are influential leaders. Well, that's maybe a good cue for you to like, well, I'm going to follow those people as well, and I could add them to a list. So it's a shortcut of getting followers or following people that may be of that like-minded or within that same genre that you've been added to. So that's a great question. And we're going to get a little bit more in depth here on these lists right now. So when we look at lists and building lists will take the chaos and the confusion out of Twitter. This is where I tell everybody to start with when dealing with Twitter is let's first organize and let's start creating lists. Other than that, you're just going to have a feed full of people that are coming through of randomness at times, and it can feel overwhelming and it can feel confusing. So start to build lists. This will help. And we're going to get into that right now. So there's different types of lists. We have public lists and we have private lists. And I'm going to show you where that's located in the Twitter account. You can also look at this it could be for your own personal use or business or educational use. So this is how I break down lists. Am I going to make it public or private? Meaning that only I have access to it. So this is my group. I don't want anyone else to see it. Or am I just going to have it open and public so other people could be benefited from that list? And other people can share and help with some collaboration. And again, am I doing this for a personal reason? Is it because I need to catch up on my golf scores? What's happening at we got the AGC coming up here, the last big championship for golf. Football season's coming up. And I'm not saying that this is a great tool to catch scores during church, but it could be. Could be. So we'll look at those types of reasons. So when we start building lists, so here's a screenshot of my account right here. At the very top, when you click on your name, it'll bring you to this part right here, and I've clicked on this tab right here called Lists. Right now, I currently have 21 lists. Here's a couple of them. I have an SEO list. I have an entrepreneur list right here. And here's where you create your new list. It's very simple. So before you really do anything in Twitter, just go through and start setting up lists. You don't have to even have people in those lists yet. But set them up because you can't set up lists on your phone. You have to do it on a PC. At least the iPhone won't let you go through and actually create the list. You can add people to your list on your phone, but this is something that you're going to have to do on your Mac or your PC. So you create a new list. Once you create a new list, this pops up right here. Here's an example. I've got a list. We're going to call it SG Chamber. I can put a description in there. These are all the members of the SG Chamber. Hashtag. Maybe there's a hashtag that was going to be associated with this list as well. And then I can look at, do I want the privacy public? Anyone can follow this list, so you can follow the list, or private, only I can access the list. And this is a personal preference. There are some things that I just add that's just for my well-being. I have quite a few private lists. Probably have more private than I do have public. Probably because I have a lot of insecurities. Haven't got to that point yet. I'm already tweeting and Instagramming and everything else. I have to have some kind of control. So I have private lists. So now we look at build your influencer lists. So once we have lists built, and on your worksheet, I've actually put a place for you to start putting ideas for what type of lists would be beneficial for you. Who are the people, who are the groups that you want to start adding to those lists? And the easiest way to start building influencers, and this is the educational component. So there's not just random chaos to follow, unfollow. There's a lot of people that just do that. But if you go into Twitter with a purpose and a goal, you're going to become smarter. I recently just wrote a blog post called Twitter Makes You Smarter. And this is one of the reasons that Twitter makes you smarter, is because there are some really, really smart people on Twitter. We call them influencers. They're doing things well. They have a good following. They have really good content. They have good information. Well, how do I find those people? Because these people become your mentors. And there's another component, is these people already have your target market gathered. And so there's a huge benefit to finding these types of influencers. And so the easiest way, and the first way, is just do a Twitter search. The top of, when you log into Twitter, there's a search box. Twitter itself is a massive search engine. You can just type in a keyword. What is it you're looking for? Or you may find a hashtag that may be relevant to your industry. We'll talk a little bit more about hashtags. But it's going to help define a specific word or phrase that is relevant to your industry or relevant to what is it that you want. And you'll see what people are using. And people that are using that a lot may be somebody that you want to follow. Or they may have other people within their followers. Or they may have lists that they have built with followers already there. So it's not that difficult to start to dissect Twitter. You just look and find, what is it that I need? Well, I need this word. I want to find this phrase. I type it in there. Another easy way to do this is Google. Again, a lot of you are like, holy crap, I came for this? This is not rocket science. I thought I was going to have some crazy unknown tricks. No. It's just the system. Google. You type in Google. You just type in what is it you're looking for? Social media influencers. Just type it in. See what pops up. Now you're going to get a bunch of paid advertising. Skip those. Go to the first one that's up there. Now an influencer doesn't always have to be just a person. It can be a company. It can be an organization. Those are influencers. People who make a difference. People that have wisdom, or organizations. So you can follow those companies, those organizations. It doesn't always have to be just a person. So you can do a Google search. Or there's other search tools that we'll talk about, such as Topsy. Topsy.com. And you just type in the same thing, a keyword, a phrase, a hashtag. And we'll show you some of those things, what they look like. So Twitter search. Maybe just do a hashtag. As you start filling it in, it's similar to Google. It'll start populating some of the most popular words or hashtags that somebody else has already searched for. It's giving you the hints. You don't have to do a lot of work. So I type in social media, hashtag social media, that's what I'm interested in. It drops down a bunch of hashtags that I can click on, or it actually starts to show me different groups and organizations that may be very beneficial for me to follow. Social Media Examiner being one of these. I get a ton of information from them. Social Media Today. So I can click. So it's taking the guesswork out for you. You just need to know where to start at. Google search, same type of thing. Now, one of the tricks that I do like to use is add a word to the keywords that you're using. And that word is blogs. So I'll type in there, social media marketing blogs. Because I want to find blogs or websites of individuals who are influencers. And again, it's going to give me a result. I'm going to go through, not deal with the paid advertising, but I'm going to go to that top one, click on it, see, maybe read through it. Maybe that top one's not your perfect one. Maybe it's 2 down. Click on it, go to their website, and guess what everybody has on their website? Social media links. Now you go and follow all their different links. Follow them on Facebook, follow them on Twitter, follow them on Instagram, follow them on Pinterest. The new one that's coming out, that's no longer just for teens, is Snapchat. So you'll start to see the little ghost coming up. We'll do some training maybe later on that, because that's another, that's going to hurt some of you as we talk about that. You're like, oh, I just got figuring out Twitter, and now we got this Snapchat thing. So here's our paid advertising here. You want to pass these. Some of you don't have to, because some are good. You know, Marketo, big organization. Maybe they're paying the big bucks to get up there. They may be a pretty good influencer as well.
Hey, Brandon.
Yes?
One of the things that I see people getting hooked up in whatever social media they are is bigger is better. And although it is nice to have a large outreach, it's also nice to be effective to those who are following you already. And what is your goal of Twitter? If your goal on Twitter is to have everybody at recess like you, then that goes clear back to elementary school who probably need some help. Because having a huge list of followers in and of itself is shallow. What are you doing with that huge list? If it's feeding an ego, in my opinion, it can be harmful and it can take a lot of time out of your productive day. But if you have a purpose and you're making an impact and it's driving your business, it's driving your, not just business, but like your community and your wellness of life, and you're contributing to your followers, then I think you got a healthier approach than how many numbers I can get. What's your take on that?
Yeah, the numbers game is funny because there's 2 aspects to numbers. But it all boils down to is large numbers, will I take large numbers to engaged followers? Which one do I want? Well, I'd rather have engaged followers. Somebody that I can communicate with. And so it's not always about that big number, but there is value to a big number because there's a perceived value that comes into play. I would not be up here today necessarily if I had 30 followers. You're like, oh, Brendan, he's got 30 followers. Woohoo! Guy's rocking it. Oh, I've got 38,000 followers. So there's a number there. Now, of that 38,000, how many of those are engaged? 3%? 5%, depending on my tweet. That's actually a really good number. If you can get a 5% engagement rate, that's pretty good. It doesn't sound a whole, that's like, that kind of stinks. But so those numbers do play value. But so again, we want targeted numbers. So we're always working to refine the types of people that we're following, that we're engaging with, so that we can build a larger following and followers, but we also want a more engaged following with that as well. And it's a balance, it's ongoing. And so you'll see a lot of people and you'll see a lot of advertisements out there of like, buy Twitter followers. Great, you're going to have a huge number with no engaged value. And so you're not going to get much from that if you're trying to use it for a business reason. If you're using it for an ego reason, buy away. And you're going to get some real funky stuff and you're going to get a ton of porn. Because that's what happens when you start buying followers. So if you're into that stuff.
What about, like, kind of on the same verge of what he's saying, what about the content? If you have, like, we do really well on, for our personal use, for our business, on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, but do followers get
That's a great question. So we're looking at if we've got somebody, if you're engaging on all different platforms, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and you're sharing the same content to all three of those, and everybody's following all three of those. I have a number of my followers who follow me on every platform that I'm on. Won't they get tired of it? Well, here's the interesting part to that. How many of you are on Twitter 24 hours a day? I think the statistic is you've got about a 12-minute window for somebody to see your content. And so one of the tricks in posting content to your different areas is you can stagger them at different times because everybody's going to be at different windows. They may see it here, but they may have missed it here. They may see it here, they may have missed it here. So it's to your advantage to post the same content to a variety of social media platforms so that you can get greater exposure. You can also post the same exact thing different times throughout the day and change it up just a little bit. We'll talk about, as we get further into this, as we get into Twitter is really about headlines. Can you create a really good headline that would still drive back to your content? Or what is it you're trying to do? So think of it as you have one piece of content here. You've got a nice car. Where's my car sales group? They're not here. So you've got this really nice car right here. So how do I advertise for that car? Do I just hold up one sign one time a day? No. I hold up multiple signs. Some of them are exactly the same. I put them at different places, and I give different verbiage on those signs. It may say how to do this, or check this out, or newly air freshened. I don't know. I'll be a horrible car salesman right now, I've just decided. Yeah, it's like, does not stink. So they hold up those multiple, different signs, different times throughout the day. And again, not everybody's on. So even if I post straight across the same time, I'm not having both. I'm just like, okay, I've got my iPad, I got my phone, and I'm looking at Twitter and Facebook at the same time. That's not happening as well. So you can post at the same time or multiple times, or just change it around a little bit because people are going to be on at different times.
Is there a known time frame throughout the day that is known by Twitter that more people
Yes.
at lunch or breakfast or dinner?
There is, and we're actually going to talk about that today, and it's on your handout, and we're going to get right into it. But timing is everything. You've heard that. It still applies to social media. Timing is everything. And so you've got to look at when's the best time to post something, as well as how to do it. So then we get into the technical stuff. So those are great questions. We're going to answer those in just a second. So here's one, the Topsy that we talked about. You can search in here. We've got influencers here, everything. You can just it's like a search engine that you can find an influencer. Clout as well. This was taking a while, so that's one that actually dropped down to 66. Should have updated that one. We look at social media marketing, and you can look at some different influencers as well through Clout. So now we're going to look at this follow, unfollow, and this is starting to build into getting the right type of people to engage with, and that's going to lead into the content and why we're going to post, when we're going to post, how we're going to post. So when we look at the follow, unfollow of your target market, I've already talked about that we know where our target market is if you have found influencers. People follow, people are in groups, they follow influencers. If that's a leadership and your target market's leadership, you find a good leader, people are craving for leadership, are following that. Hey, there it is. They've already done all the work for you. That's why influencers are nice to have around. I have a lot of influencers online. They're just my silent mentors. I work real hard to try to build relationships so they know who I am. Like Mountain Dew. Mountain Dew's an influencer for me. They gave me a shout out. I mean, it made my day. Yes?
Yeah, you mentioned earlier that you might get classified
The problem with porn is the industry of porn is always trying to find all the back doors to get in. There are filters that are set in place, and with Twitter, a lot of it is who you're allowing in. So they can't just connect. People can follow you that may be porn related, but you can block them. And there are some filters as you're doing some searches that you can filter out, and there's a really good tool out there that I use that just has lists and lists of keywords that it just, if it has that keyword in their biography, in their any of their areas, it's just not even going to show up. But they still get through. And so sometimes you have to be careful, and we're going to talk about this part here where, you know, the selective manual following, this is where this will come in, is you'll see someone come up and you're just going to have to block it that comes in. But that's the nasty part about all this technology is pornography. And yeah, it does affect what you do online, unfortunately. But we're doing everything that we can and what you can to try to limit that. And as you get more involved with it, you know, Twitter and a lot of those, you do have a lot of control over that. As they try to sneak in, you can quickly block that and get rid of it. So that's a good question. So let's talk about a few of these tools and some of these things down here, Managed Flitter and Crowdfire. So when you follow, see, these are some of the rules of engagement. We talked about this last time. You know, you follow people, companies that add value to you. That's key. Unless you're going for ego, then you're just follow. Now, you don't have to be so time-consuming and read through everything. I have an idea of a group of people that I want to follow. I'll go through and follow them. And a lot of times, that value will show up later to see where that engagement comes from. So a lot of my Twitter list that builds and my followers that build, they don't add a lot of value. I go through and scrub it, and I'll start deleting people. About a month ago, I just went through and I think I deleted almost 9,000 followers. And I had a drop of my following about 200. It just kind of showed you where those followers were at. And so my gap of 38,000 to following 23,000, it just grows bigger and bigger because I'll go through and scrub that. So value will often show up later as you start following and unfollowing people. You follow similar businesses or people. Reciprocation, that's a big part of how Twitter works, is we rely on the law of reciprocation. If I follow you, there's a good chance that you will follow me. And that's how we start to engage. Happens on most social media networks. I follow you, you follow me. You follow me, hey, I like you, you're going to follow me back. But I'm a little bit more selective. People that will follow me, I'll quickly look at them and I'm like, nope, you still have an egg for your picture. Not going to follow you yet. Or somebody will, they'll follow me, I'll wait, and then they'll engage and they'll say something to me. Or people will follow me, I'll follow them, and then they start giving me these autoresponder direct messages. There's a part to your Twitter account that you can do an autoresponder, and they just start shooting you direct messages. I'll just unfollow. I hate autoresponders for the direct messages in Twitter. So that value sometimes will manifest itself a little bit later. So that's how reciprocation works. That's that process, and it happens on all social media networks, but it happens quite a bit on Twitter. So when you look at the manual follow, unfollow tools, and this will answer your question here. So here are some people that followed me. And I was following, kind of went through there. So I look at a lot of times online, I'll see stuff, and they're a travel, writer, and blogger. You know, those are the people, those are a lot of my target market, and so I'll follow them and work to engage with them. But I'll get crazy people that will follow me. I've got this guy here, I don't know who he is. He's, I haven't unfollowed him or followed him yet. He's a singer, but I can look through here where I click on this. If I can tell that maybe it's pornography, I can click on this cog right here, and I can go down to hit block. Bam, blocks it instantly and clears off any of their images that may be down there as well, and it won't show up. So that's the simple way. So those are those additional tools that you can go through. And so you can see up here, again, kind of the dashboard that's up there. You can look at my ratio of following to followers, stuff that I favorite. That's that toolbar. And then as you get individually, bam, I can unfollow them. So that's the manual process, which is important because mainly for pornography and just random, weird, creepy people. There's a huge group out there, by the way. And if that's your target market, if you could figure out how to tap into the creepy people market and them to pay you money, there's a huge market out there because there's a ton of creepy people out there. So this is one of the tools that I use. There's a free version and a paid version. I use the paid version because I'm a little bit more involved with Twitter, but you don't have to go the paid version. It's called Manage Flitter, and it will actually go through and sort your followers and followings. You can go through and it will populate everybody that you follow that hasn't followed you back. It can go through and you can whitelist people that you never want to unfollow. You can blacklist people. You can block people. You can also find new people to follow. So this is a time management tool where I can start to find these groups of people, or I can follow influencers. So there's actually a tool in there where I can say, I want to follow all of their followers. So I can type in their hashtag or their handle, their name. Mine's at Brendan Daly, at whatever, and it will populate all of theirs. Now, depending on where you are at in your following to follower ratio, depends on how many people you can follow a day. You'll get to a point where I'm at right now, I can max out I can follow 1,000 people a day. But starting out, it may only be, I think it starts at about 100. You can only follow, and if you keep going above that, Twitter may shut you down. So you always have to be aware of where that, you'll follow people, you'll be following groups, and it'll be like, you're no longer allowed to follow anymore. And you're like, what happened? What did I do? What did I click on? No, there's a limit to how many people that you can follow every day. Now, there's not a limit of how many people you can unfollow, but there is a limit. And you don't always want to keep exceeding that limit. You've got to be cautious of that because Twitter, they say there's some red flags that go up. Yes? Mm-hmm. Every day. So I can follow new followers. So every day I can follow new people that are not following me, or vice versa. I can only follow new for 1,000. And then that adds to how many are actually following you or following. And there becomes a ratio, too, between that discrepancy that if you're following more than people are following you, that's where this magic ratio comes into play. That often dictates of how many people you can follow, unfollow, when they'll unlock it, because Twitter wants engagement. They don't want one person just following 10,000 people and nobody's following them. That looks very spammy. So there is a ratio that's in there. So you have to play that game. Follow people that are worth following, engage with them, they'll follow you back. Close that gap, you can follow more, and as it grows, you can add to that. So it's a process. Yes?
I sit here and I'm wondering what the object of it is, why you would be following these people. Couldn't read that many things from the start of it, and I don't see the object.
So the question is what's the object of following that many people? Or anybody. And so that goes back up to the purpose of what is it that you want to accomplish. That purpose is maybe that's a business opportunity. Those are people that within your target market that may be interested in what you have to sell. A lot of you are saying, well, wait a minute, I'm just local. Well, local businesses at some point in time are not going to do very well because we're moving to global. And there's opportunities out there for global. Is Twitter for everybody? No. But you say, okay, what's that value? Well, maybe it's not that they're a target market. Maybe it's not that I want them to engage because I have a product to sell them. Maybe they're an educational resource. Going back to those influencers. Maybe there's some topic that I want to learn about, or there's some skill set that I love to learn about. I can go in and follow those influencers, follow their tweets, add them to a list, Because of those 23,000 people that I follow, I have segregated lists where, okay, I'm going to put this one in that list. And then I can go through and quickly scan my list on social media or scan my list on sports or leadership, and I'll find something that's catchy, and I'll go in and maybe it links to an article or links back to their blog. So it's an educational tool, so I could use it as an educational tool. Or it could be a news tool. My wife and I, and especially my wife, during the election times, something that we always laugh about, my wife spends more time on Twitter during the election times than probably any other time throughout the year, because just loves reading all the input of what's going on, what's the debates, what are the things that are being said. So there's some real-time news that can occur as well. So again, always take it, don't just follow people. That's why I'm saying go back to that original idea of when you follow somebody, could they fit within a list? That way they become a resource to you, not just a random feed. Because in a way it is a game though. You're like, well, I got 23,000 people that I'm following. What's the point? The point is I'm trying to find the needle in the haystack in some ways. There's a new form of communication out there through social media that our younger generation is gravitating towards, so I have to learn it, I have to know it. But just knowing the little tips and tricks, that will help me to utilize it to my advantage. Not just doing it for the sake of doing it, but doing it for a purpose. What's the object? Again, what is your purpose? And does that answer your question a little bit? Yeah.
Brendan, I think too, if I could just put your question in one thought. Everything feels global, right?
Mountain Dew break.
Let's say you had 2,000 people right here in St. George that you could access in a tweet instantly. And you were to say to them, you know what, we found some new ways of improving your television, or I have a new discount card that will help you, whatever with your plasma TV. I just wanted you to know. And because you're not advertising to them all the time, but because you're interacting, you're writing content, you're sharing one another's knowledge, when you do send something out locally, let's say you went out to 2,000 people and 3% read it, well, that's going to be an awesome number. Because 60 people is really fun to talk to directly, right? And so social media is global. I'll tell you what, it's right here in my own backyard, and I can say something and people will be right there. So it's beneficial to become a content writer so that somebody loves what you're writing and gets interacts with you. And it's nice to use it for business too.
So go back to that purpose. There's personal aspects to it, stuff that I can use. Jeff and I, there's numerous times where we respond back to each other. Something pops up, he'll tweet to me, I'll tweet to him. We'll be in a conference. It's kind of like the little boy syndrome. I can't say little girl because I don't know that, but I'm going to talk about the little boys where Auntie, we're in a conference and it's boring. So what do? We just start tweeting back and forth. I mean, it's a tool for fun, so it's a game, something else. So there's some enjoyment aspects to it. But again, what's that purpose? But again, it's focused purpose. Finding how this tool can work for you. That's the key. Do you want to use it for an educational tool? I'm an educator by trade. I find so much valuable information in there. Is it a business tool? What do I want to use it for? It has not yet. I'm sure it will. You're starting to see more and more. Twitter, not too long ago, added the promotion where you can promote your tweets for a payment. Instagram just recently added that feature as well. They have to monetize it. Facebook by far is the worst though, with boosting posts. And that's why you're seeing a shift, a huge shift away from Facebook, especially for the younger generation. And when something else becomes monetized heavily, like Facebook has, there'll be a new platform that people will move to. But as of now, supposedly it's not. But Twitter has a lower percentage of engagement because you have a small timing, you have a small window. You've got 12 minutes throughout the day basically to hit somebody, and it's a crapshoot of when that may happen. And so we'll get into some of those types of things as well. That's where the content comes into. That's where the timing comes into play. Things that we can do to help us be more productive and more focused in why we're doing this craziness with this Bluebird here. So this is Manage Flitter. This is the mainframe of it. When you log into it, you hit Start. As you can hit Start, it actually will log you in without... It'll ask you to have authorization to your Twitter account, but it doesn't charge you for anything. There's a free, and allows you to actually have a small number. You can follow so many people and unfollow so many people. I believe it's unlimited unfollows, but it gives you like 50 follows that you can do. But this is a great tool. So I'll go through under this Manage tab here, and I'll look at, oh, here's a bunch of people that are not following me back. Well, they're not very engaged with me. I have a little bit of an ego, I'm not going to lie. I figure that if I am willing to say something, for the most part, this is my teacher side, there's probably some value to it. If I've prepared a lesson, if I've prepared something, I believe there's some value to what I'm going to do. And so I want people to engage with me. That's my whole purpose. If you're not going to do that, well, then I'm just going to push you aside. I'm going to unfollow you, and I'm going to find the next crowd that may want to engage with me, that may find what I have valuable. Because I believe, and this is a motto and a creed of mine that I've developed a long time ago, that says that the greatest teacher is the greatest student, and that the greatest student is the greatest teacher. I teach, I learn. I learn, I teach. That's how I work. My job in all that I do in social media, I want you to be smarter than me. If you take any of my seminars, you go through any of my trainings, my goal is for you to be smarter than me. Because that's going to help somebody else, and that's going to make somebody else smarter. It's going to be better. So these are tools that I use to help engage so that I can be smarter with my time, my resources, and can help me focus more on a target market and a group of influencers that will benefit me, and I can benefit them, and they can go in this ongoing upward spiral. So this is one of those tools. Another one that I use, and I mainly use this one. You can use it for Twitter. I actually like this one for Instagram. And you can log on there. This is actually my Instagram account, one of them. And it can go through the same type of process of follow, unfollow. Instagram has its own little rules. You can actually only follow roughly 100 people an hour. That's just, or unfollow. You have to wait for that. If you follow that many people, and it's going to lock you out for an hour, and then you have to wait, and then you can do it. So it has its own rules. It's not an Instagram training. We'll do that one at another time. Just to put a plug in 6 weeks of Instagram, I've increased over 6,000 followers. There's a system to that one as well. And they're highly engaged. I like Instagram, highly engaged followers as well on Instagram. I average on each of my posts, usually right around 100 plus likes on my posts as well. So now let's tweet something. So the litmus test, of course, of anything, this is a good life lesson. You may want to tattoo this on you. Does it enhance or does it distract? That's a great litmus test for anything that we do in the world, especially on social media. This is where the creepy people don't get it. Rules of engagement. You focus on driving interaction and value with your followers. You can do that through tweets, retweets, replies, favorites. We talked about this last time. I'm not going to go into it very much. If you've got questions, you've got my contact information. We want to create value. We want to share other content from other people. It's not just about you. There's lots of smart people out there. Share their awesomeness. People like that. How many times in life have you felt just awesome because somebody said your name, or somebody gave you an award, or somebody recognized you for something cool that you did? It works on a worldwide scale as well. Give credit where credit's due. Share other people's work. Share other people's awesomeness. People love that. It drives engagement. Share your content. You can promote others. You can do shout-outs, quotes, inspirations, and pictures. Keep it short. We talked about this last time. 140 characters is what Twitter allows. You're going to do better with 100. This is another way that Twitter makes you smarter. Just think, if you could say something that's so impactful in one sentence, how much hot air would we lose in this world if people could just spit it out? Just say it. And say it that has value. Okay? Think in headlines. Again, there's some hints on your paper as we get into those headlines. You can have fun, you can play games. Here's some things from retweets, what that looks like. Again, we covered this last time. Get in some quotes. This is something else that you need to start doing. This will help you start to build your content. Now as we say, what do I tweet? Start to find those influencers, find those blogs, find those websites, create a favorites list. This is what I've done. And start dropping them. That's on your browser window, your bookmark bar. Create a favorites list and just start dropping their blog, their website in there. Now you have all these awesome people that you can go through and share their content, or you can learn from them, or you can, what I like to call, you can learn how to curate awesomeness.
I have a question about, you keep talking about followers, but I want to focus more on content because followers to us, even though it's great to have a lot of followers, it doesn't really bring in people through the door. I have a small crowd of followers, like 500, and on social media, a couple thousand on Facebook. But to me, what's important is my message getting them to want to walk into my store. That's the whole point of social media, right? I don't
Yep.
really care about feeling special, being popular or whatever. I just want the content that I'm sending out getting their attention and wanting them to go, hey, that sounds good for lunch. That's what I want. So my question is, I'm a millennial, and I'm one of the youngest ones in the room. No offense, but I was just born after you get spit.
Just a quick shout out on that. I actually coached her in cross country when I taught high school. So.
Well, my question is the age group. When I look at someone like Jeff, I'm interested in knowing, does he care to see more photos? Is that more interesting to him to see a graphic? Is that going to get you in the door of a new juice that I just posted? Or is the content more interesting? And how do you bridge the millennials from the baby boomers to keep them both interested, yet, and both through the door? Because that's what matters at the end of the day. That's why we do social media, right? So my question is graphics the hot thing right now? Is that what people want to see, more photos, or the content of what you're writing?
So I'm going to answer that in one word. Yes. Okay? But this is how it works. So we want to look at what is it that drives in here. So these are other tools to gather content. So these tools that I'm sharing, these are important for you because you can see what influencers are doing. Because if influencers, here's what you do. You mimic influencers. Mimic success. Success is so much easier to gain if you're not trying to create it from scratch. If you can follow success, see what they're doing. Find out how they're posting. Find out what their blogs look like. Find out the types of pictures that they're using. And those are going to be geared. Now, we have a gap with the different generations that are out there. But generally speaking, when you talk about pictures, on Twitter, it's shown that pictures get 313% more engagement. Now, as a communicator, as a public speaker, someone who teaches this, I also understand how communication works. And when we communicate, one of the principles that happens is we take those words and we actually create them in images. And then we attach them to meaning. We often attach them to events that have taken place. Pictures, movies, so to speak, in our mind. Pictures are extremely valuable. Why is Instagram blowing up? It's pictures. So pictures are extremely important. Content is also important. And so if we can combine the two, good pictures with good content that adds value. Now there's an ongoing debate, and this is something that we can get into because writing good content, developing content, understanding content in itself is another presentation. You guys are going to keep having me back because there's all sorts of things that we can keep going down as we get further and further down the rabbit hole. But they say that a lot of people ask, what's the perfect length for a blog? The answer is as long as it takes to get your point across. Now, with that being said, we also look at the rules from Twitter, which is, what can I say that can be most effective in the least amount of words? We've also seen, and we're learning, that all of that English that you learned in high school and college has probably screwed you up. So if you have any English teachers out there, I'm sorry. Not because of the grammar that's involved, that's part of it. I have not the greatest grammar. I always tell people, if you write the way I speak, you're screwed. That's why I do like to speak. But we're also looking that we like short snippets. We're becoming more and more hypersensitive to our time. And so we have to look at, what is it that I can do? So I need headlines, using headlines appropriately. I need 2 to 3 sentence paragraphs. I need bullet points. I need something that's visually pleasing, because I need to find something usually through a skim scan technique rather than just to sit down and power through something. You've got to have breaks. You've got to have white space. So there's a lot of things, and we can talk more about that offline. That in itself is a huge portion of that. But hopefully that answers a little bit of your question. So the answer is yes, use pictures, use good content, but follow what the influencers are using. Copy what they're doing, not plagiarizing, but see how they're doing it, because they're being effective. Give me 1 second. Let's get a little bit through this. I want to share a couple things because we're running out of time, and then we'll answer questions right after. And I'll stay as long as you need me to. But this is another tool that you need to use. This is Canva. This is the picture side. Use this tool. It's free. It's a great tool. You can actually, it gives you pre-sized pictures that will fit at the different social media places that you need. If you need a Twitter post, it's going to give you that. You need an Instagram post, you click on that, it already gives you the dimensions that Instagram wants. It's going to allow you to drag and drop. It's got a ton of free components that you can drag and drop, backgrounds. Use this. I use Canva every single day. You can click on more and do a bunch of other stuff. So here's some of the things that I've created down there. PicMonkey is another free resource. You don't even have to log in. Canva, usually have to log in, give it access. I log in with my Twitter account, saves it. PicMonkey, don't even have to do that. Another great resource. A little bit more in depth. It takes a little bit more time to go through all their different filters, the different things that they use. Has a little bit more play to it. Some more things that you can do, which makes it nice. But there's a little bit more learning curve with this, but it's free. You can do a paid version. But so many people don't need it. Okay. Other things we look at, love apps. My 2 favorite apps on my phone that I use to post, because I have a lot of free time, not in my office it seems. I'm always like sitting at a conference, or I'm doing something, I'm bored out of my mind, or waiting for a child someplace. Well, I can use that time. These are the ones I use on my iPhone. I don't know if they have them for Android. If you have them for Android, just go ahead and leave. Just kidding. Just kidding. So this first one is called Phonto. P-H-O-N-T-O. That one's Phonto. Super simple, super easy. And I often use the 2 of these. The other one is WordSwag, which you do have to pay for, but it's like $3, $4. And it connects to a great free resource called Pixabay, which it's a free website that has uploaded images, so you can like drag in pictures that people have taken, and there's some pretty decent ones. So I use both of those a ton. We're going to look at scheduling your tweets. Analytics is a big part of it. Manage Flitter will help you to schedule it. So we've looked at what to write. We're going to write some things. Manage Flitter, I go back to it as my main tool, as well as Twitter itself for looking at the analytics. I want to know what people are doing, what people are engaging with. Twitter itself has a great analytics tool that I can go and say, hey, I got a lot of engagement in that. So then I ask myself, why? When did I do that? What was said? I can start looking and dissecting why I had success or why I didn't have success. Manage Flitter has it as well. Buffer.com, another free resource to help you schedule your tweets. Tweet Jukebox is another one that's it's fairly new that you can load in, so you can spend time maybe for an hour loading in stuff throughout your day and during scheduled times, and I'll show you that, and walk away and it will automate it for you on Twitter. And then Crowdfire, stupid thing, it went small on me. There's another one. So in Manage Flitter, here's the timing side of it. In Manage Flitter, it actually goes in and shows me, and it's on your sheet as well, but it shows me, oh, there's a tool in there that I can look and say at 2 o'clock p.m. for Wednesday is when most of my followers are on. So maybe I want to schedule 15, 20-minute blocks of 3 or 4 posts from maybe 1 to 3 o'clock where I'm going to put maybe 3 or 4 of my posts because that's where the majority of my users are online. You know, stay away from the dip time where you can scroll that over and it'll give you the exact times of when that will be. So timing. Utilize your time. Okay. Twitter Analytics, you can go through there. It gives you a ton of cool stuff. This is the Buffer app where you can actually load in your tweets, and Buffer actually attaches to, you can put on your LinkedIn account and your Facebook page. This is a great one as you're going cross-platforms, but you can also set it up to, under the scheduling time, you can put in specific days and times for each of your areas, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. It does Google Plus as well, and then you can pay for a Pinterest if you want. And it'll allow you to schedule out so many tweets, posts a day, and you can randomize that because different platforms people are on at different times. So that's a great tool as well, and it's free. It's one I use. One that's similar to that is Hootsuite. You may have heard of that one. Buffer is just more simplistic for me, and it's just been really easy to use. There's Tweet Jukebox as well. Recap: create value, inspire, solve a problem, make something better. There's your purpose. Okay? Have a purpose. Build lists. Find and follow influencers. Follow and unfollow with purpose. That's key. Tweet it right, content, and the delivery method. Pictures, sayings, what is it we want to do, headlines. Schedule those tweets. Timing is everything. Okay? Have fun, learn, share, and experiment. Okay. Fire hosed you a little bit. Gave you a really cool worksheet that you can work on that can go through a lot of the steps that we went through. Has my contact information as well. Again, those of you that are online watching this, tweet me and I can get you that. If you have questions, I know we're out of time. We've run over a little bit. I'll stay after. We'll talk, whatever we need to do, or give me a buzz. Thank you.